Welcome, everyone. This is the DFS Bum. All right, Monday, we have the playoffs officially starting after that awesome play-in game on Saturday. So it's a 4-game slate. We're going to jump into the game here real quick, but a couple things. Just want to report back on from Saturday. Thanks for all you folks that watched that video and subscribed for the play-in game. I personally ended up taking first. It was kind of odd. I actually had two lineups that took first place. It was pretty bizarre. I'm not quite ever really seen this. And so what ended up happening here, and this is the main, I guess the quote-unquote main slate, or just a single-game showdown from Saturday. The winning lineup ended up being Nurkic at the All-Star or the MVP spot. The All-Star spot ended up being a tie, actually, between Damian Lillard and Valanciunas. I keep on fucking up his name, but anyway, Valanciunas, and then I can't remember who else it was. But then the two utility spots were Gary Trent and Kyle Anderson, and I think maybe that last spot, the pro spot, might have been Ja Morant. But anyhow, what ended up happening was I screwed up. I actually put in the same lineup twice, so I got first twice, which was good. I think it was so I actually made a little bit of a profit having that in there. But then I took my overflow lineups, and what I wanted to do into this little smaller tournament, it was only 10,000. I ended up getting first in that one as well. And so we were $274 in there, $1,000. I think I had maybe about, I don't know, what was it, like $500 in entry fees or something like that. And then this one I threw in I don't know, maybe about like 30 or 40 lineups, and I did duplicate some on purpose and tied in there. And again, because what it was is one of these lineups had Lillard at the MVP, or excuse me, Lillard at the All-Star spot, and I meant to flip him and Valanciunas off, but I ended up having the same lineup in this one and then the same lineup in the other one. So kind of weird how it played out. Kind of shitty. That first was like less than the actual entry fee if you did a whole like 150 lines. That does happen on occasion. It's actually rarer than what you'd probably think, though. Those games can be very profitable. I'd mentioned this the other day. I'll show it to you guys just so you don't think I'm a liar. Hopefully you guys don't think that anyway. But this is my 1099 from last year, 2019, for Fanduel, $181,649. To me, Daniel Foster, and that was primarily playing a lot of single game tournaments. Most of that was 125,000 I mentioned the other day that I was able to win last year in the NBA Finals on a single game slate. But the other part of it, but obviously it wasn't just like I had one big win. It came from a bunch of other wins from out the year too. So there's definitely potential to make good money on that. So, all right, guys, let's jump into the game. And the last thing before we do this is if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I'd definitely appreciate that. A thumbs up would be awesome. I really just started this channel last fall, and we started to really pick up some momentum in the beginning part of the year. And then when we got shut down, it obviously the channel stopped growing, and I don't do esports or cover those. So if you guys could subscribe, that would help make up for some lost time. So, all right, guys, let's get into it here at the point guard spot. And I've done something a little bit unique where I've tracked all of their stats through the startup. So what I'll do is I'll go through here. We'll do it a little bit different. I'm going to run through the pricing, and then I'm going to jump over to my stats, and we can look at kind of how these guys have done, because it's almost like we are in a new season. Pretty rare that I could actually do this just normally in the NBA season. It's just way too time consuming to try to do what I'm doing, but now it's kind of perfect. So going in tonight, or tomorrow I should say, at the point guards, Kyle Lowry and Jamal Murray are probably going to be our top two options here. Lowry's coming in at 7,300 on FanDuel, 7,900 on DraftKings. Jamal Murray is 6,100 on FanDuel, 6,500 on DraftKings. And then from there, we go to Kemba Walker, Mike Conley. Kemba Walker, $6,000 on FanDuel, 6,900 on DraftKings. Conley's 5,800 on FanDuel, 54 on DraftKings. From there, we start to fall off. Guys like Shake Milton's 4,200 on FanDuel, 5,100 on DraftKings. We have Seth Curry's only $4,000 on FanDuel, 3,900 on DraftKings. Tyler Johnson. Basically, the rest of these guys are all kind of like sub $4,000 between most of the slates, between basically FanDuel and DraftKings. Injury-wise, we're still early. I'm not really sure what's going on with Landry Shamat, Patrick Beverly. Those were guys that I'd seen. I'm not sure if they have anything official yet. But outside of that, it should be, I think, a relatively healthy field overall. So now let's go back in here and specifically look at these point guards here and what they had done. So what I have done here is like I mentioned, I took, here's 8 games that they played. Obviously, like we all know, guys were sitting out, but I'm just sitting there and taking their averages. And what I've done is I've just sorted it by the average points since the startup has happened. And I have their points per minute here and then the average minutes that they've played. So it's not necessarily by salary, but we can go back in here. We see Kyle Lowry averaged 37.4 points in the startup, 1.16 points per minute guy. That's really good for a guard. And then from there, Conley was coming in right behind him at 29 points in startup. Played 6 games. Jamal Murray coming in here, played 4 games, 29 points. He'd averaged 1.19. So again, really, really strong. So basically, you can kind of go down here and see who has done well in the startup. We got Marcus Smart here. This Jeremiah Martin with Brooklyn Nets. I'm not sure how much he's going to really play when things are important. Brooklyn played a lot of their starters basically that last game. He only played 9 minutes. Still had 11 points, which is good. From a point standpoint, 1.44, which is really phenomenal. But again, who knows, like, really what is going to be happening with that rotation now. The guys that we do know are going to play, Lowry, Conley, Murray. I really like those guys. Smart, I don't know, or actually Smart, yeah, he's okay. I was thinking of Kemba Walker. He's not on my list for some reason. I must have missed him somehow. But anyway, Kemba Walker, you could just go into the game log when you sign up and look at him, but he wasn't really setting the world on fire either. Trey Burke, who knows what's going on there, Monty Morris. So it was all these guys that were playing a lot of minutes, more so because they were letting guys kind of heal up or they were resting guys. But you can kind of see in general, just here's where people have just performed overall with it. So, all right, let's take it here. And then we're going to kind of jump back over to the scoring guards here real quick, and we'll just go through the pricing on them. The other tool that I'm using here is Draft Dashboard. If you're curious, you can try this out for $1, and there's a link in my video description below to try that. So, all right, go in here to our shooting guards, some really nice options. We have Luka coming in at 10,200 on Fanduel. He is 11 grand on DraftKings. Karis LeVert, 8,300 on Fanduel. He's only 7,600 on DraftKings. Probably be highly owned. Paul George coming in at 8,100 on both slates. We have Donovan Mitchell, 7,300 on Fanduel, 7,900 on DraftKings. Van Vliet, 7 grand on Fanduel, 6,800 on DraftKings. Now we get into Marcus Smart. So actually I had him with my point guards, but he's actually here shooting guard. 5,600 on Fanduel, 6,300 on DraftKings. Lou Williams, 5,300 on Fanduel, 6 grand on DraftKings. Norman Powell's coming in at 5 grand on Fanduel, 4,500 on DraftKings. Richardson, Clarkston, these are more of your guys in that mid-4. Richardson's actually a little bit more expensive on DraftKings. He's coming in about 5,500, where George Clarkston's actually coming in relatively cheap on DraftKings. Jesus, he's only 3,800. And then from there, it's just all these cheaper plays. Of the cheaper plays, I do really like Alec Burks' potential. We'll look at here in a second. 3,900 on both slates. And since that Simons injury, I think that he's going to be a lot more integral to that team. And so from here, and then a lot of these other guys, some of these guys had actually done really well, but that was just because they're playing an insane amount of minutes. And, they're probably not even really worthy to discuss at this point in time. Just as now we're in the playoffs and the rotations are going to be tighter, not as loose as they were. So jumping back here to the scoring guards with the restart, Luka tore it up not really surprised. 55 points is what he averaged, 1.57 points per minute. Just absolute phenomenal. LeVert, really excited about him. If you've been watching their games, he's basically has the ball in his hand almost every single possession, either facilitating the offense or trying to score. Averaged 42 points, 1.29 points per minute. Van Vliet did really well too. He's kind of a guy that's easy to overlook. 37 points that he averaged in the startup, 108. Mitchell, some monster games in there. 35 points he'd average, 1.07 points per minute. And then here's where I mentioned with Alec Burks. I know that he had some big games, but I was kind of surprised by it. He had 28.6 points, 1.21 points per minute. And we go back and you can basically see after that injury, 19 minutes, and I think this is probably about the third game that Simons got hurt. It's probably in this game. 19 minutes, 16.2 points. But then now when you see him taking on more of a bigger role, 27 minutes, almost 29 points, 23 minutes, 28 points, 27 minutes, 34 points, 22 minutes, 35 points. So that's somebody, if you want to dive down on a cheap play, I'm pretty excited about him. Same thing, too, with Garrett Temple. He's more of a veteran with the Nets, and he's not necessarily a starter, but he is playing some pretty decent minutes, and I was surprised to see that too. And again, it's like, I mean, I'm not trying to tell you just a lock on the guy, but between Burks and him, if you wanted to buy up with all the superstar power that's going on tomorrow, that's a great place to probably save some money. And those guys are actually very, very capable of hitting like 7 times value, 8 times value. I mean, that's just getting them. Like if they're like around 30 points, like mid to upper 20s, that could end up leading, because that's collectively like what you're going to try to really hit with your overall salary. So like on Fanduel, to get into that, like I would say 6 times value just to cash. 7 is going to start to put you into that rare air potentially, 420. Wink, wink, is a special number. So to get there, and then on a slate like this, I wouldn't be surprised if the top one that wins, it might be around 450, 450 points. So that's, now we're talking about like getting you up to that like 8 times value. So again, that's just some cheaper guys that I could see really blowing things out of the water. Lou Williams, pretty solid ball, 24 points that he averaged. Oh, you know what? I think this is where I'd gotten Marcus Smart and Kemba Walker mixed up there. So I did. So Kemba Walker came in, averaged 24 minutes and 22 points there. So again, I don't know. Like, is he going to play 30 minutes? Probably. But what kind of production you get? I don't know. And again, from here, there's just not probably like a whole lot that I'm really excited about, just because I think the minutes are going to start to sharpen up, other than, again, like some of these lower price guys like Dozier with the Nuggets. Like, he had done really well, kind of came out of the blue, point per minute sort of guy. But I don't know, like how much, he'd probably still play a decent run, just because Gary Harris and Will Barton are still out. But again, I'm not really maybe as excited about him, because I'm not really certain how many minutes he'll play. And like I say, Clarkston is always come off the bench and give you probably like 24 minutes, with the potential to maybe give you 30 points. So I don't really like his price on FanDuel, but DraftKings, that might be something to look at. And then, I messed up. I had Beverly here into the scoring guards. He's a point guard also. On DraftKings, he probably can go into multiple spots, but kind of underwhelming with him so far. And in fact, he hasn't even played in a while. So, and that goes back to, I didn't mention him in here, but Reggie Jackson's a cheaper play. You can kind of find, I was messing around with some lineups, like if you were to get Lowry, like LeVert, Doncic, you would definitely maybe, and I mentioned Lowry just because I think he's got the biggest potential with point guards. But, there's a lot of these guys that are like lower price guys that are like $4,000 or under, where you might be able to really get in some star potential and then try to buy down low at a couple spots there. So, all right, let's just look at, jump back over here real quick, and let's just look at the pricing. And then we'll go back and then look at the stats with the small forwards. So, alrighty here, we've got Kawhi coming in at $9,300 on FanDuel, $9,800 on DraftKings. Pretty reasonable price. with him. In fact, hold on real quick. Yeah, I think I did mention Paul George, yeah. In fact, that's one guy that stood out to me, too. Let's go back and look at Paul George. Man, I thought I did a better job on this. Though I did it at 4 in the morning this morning, so that's why we didn't go over Paul George. He is a shooting guard, but 41 points in the restart, 32 minutes, 1.2.8 point per average there. So that's definitely something to be excited about with his potential. All right, now getting back here to the small forward. So, yeah, we've got Kawhi here. Siakam coming in right behind him, 7,400 on Fanduel, 7,500 on DraftKings. Very underwhelming restart, which we'll see here in a second. Tobias Harris, on the other hand, 7,100 on FanDuel, 7,800 on DraftKings. Since that Simons injury, he's playing really well. Jaylen Brown, as far as a mid-tier price guy, 6,200 on FanDuel. Really like that price tag. Now on DraftKings, he's 7,400, so a little bit more pricey there. Gordon Hayward, 6,100 on FanDuel, and he's 1,200 more on DraftKings as well. So he's coming in right behind him at 7,300. We go down to Tim Hardaway at 5,500 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DraftKings. Joe Ingles is $5,000 on FanDuel, 5,300 on DraftKings. We got Joe Harris, played some good solid ball, 4,800 on FanDuel, 47 on DraftKings. Dorian Finney-Smith, roller coaster type performance with him, but he's getting cheap. And again, we're starting to get some of these cheaper guys here. I'm not really certain how much any of these guys, like what kind of impact they're going to have, other than maybe if there were a blowout and then they're going to get maybe more minutes simply because of the blowout. All right, let's go here and then let's go look at the stats. So now Leonard coming in, startup, 46 points, 1.36 points per minute, played in 33 minutes. So typical Kawhi production there for you. Nice thing about these guys, too, is you'd probably think that their minutes are probably going to go up maybe to the mid-30s potentially, now that we are in the playoffs, maybe in the upper 30s. Tobias Harris, really, really playing well. 38.7 fantasy points, 1.23 points per minute. I really like him, especially at that price tag that he's coming in with, so that's something to be excited about potentially. Brown, 33 points that he had averaged there. Hayward, 33, like 0.5, just a two-tenths of a point behind him. And then this is where I was talking about Siakam. 32 minutes, only 30 points. His first game out, he had 42, but then 34, 19, 14, 33, 31, and 33. And all those games he was playing in the upper, his first two games, 36 minutes, 36. And then his minutes were starting to kind of back off. But not all that much. They were still in like upper 20s, low to mid 30s, and he's just not producing. Joe Harris, I thought he did well, particularly when we go into our price tag. Almost 29 points. Look at his game. First one out, 23 points. But then 38.9, 29.2, 30.8, 25.9, 25.6. So, you get a guy that's priced around $5,000. He can get you 30 points. That's, it's 6 times value there. It's not like earth shaking or shattering, but it's, he's a decent player with potential to potentially get hot. Like I say, Finney-Smith, 24.7, but he's only a 0.8 minutes type of guy, so I'm not really certain, with him, especially now in the playoffs. Ingles, 23 minutes. 23 points. Hardaway, 22 points. Anunoby, Tybalt, again, really not a whole lot there. So, all right, let's jump over here to the power forwards real quick. So we have Porzingis being the top guy, coming in at 8,600 on FanDuel, 8,300 on DraftKings. We got Tatum, 8,300 on FanDuel, 8,500 on DraftKings. And then from there, we start to drop down. We got Michael Porter Jr., 6,800 on FanDuel, 7,100 on DraftKings. They have Ibaka. Keep an eye on him. He is a guy that is apparently a little bit banged up. I would expect him to play. Now that we are in the playoffs, if he is playing, I do really like his potential. He's only 5,800 on FanDuel, 5,400 on DraftKings. It seemed like a year ago when they had Kawhi in you were running basically down low with your big men, a 3-man rotation with Gasol, Ibaka, and Siakam. And then it'd be like Ibaka would maybe play like 24 or 26 minutes a game. But the fact that Kawhi's not there, I can just see Gasol and him running more minutes. Maybe not Gasol all that much, but I can see Ibaka getting upper 20s, low 30 minutes in the playoffs. So at that price tag, with a guy like that, I mean, he's got ability to hit threes, good rebounder, can block some shots, get some steals. So definitely like his potential. Al Horford's another guy too, 5,300 on Fanduel. Now in DraftKings, he's pretty damn pricey. He is coming in at 7,200, so he's 1,900 more. So maybe not on DraftKings, but he's a guy that could get you could break 30 points, in the mid to the mid 30s. That gives you that 7 times value, 6 to 7 times value. 5 times value used to be kind of like the old standard, but it's just with the pace of the game, it's just not really a thing anymore. I don't think you're not going to cash. You're not going to cash on a GPP on a 300-point lineup. So, all right, Daniel Tice is another guy. I'm pretty certain that he's going to play, but he's 5,300. So, some of these lineups, what I'll do at times, if I find some guys that are similar, that play the same position, that are real close with their salaries, like I might lock on in some other positions and then kind of rotate guys out, knowing that the salaries will all fit together. So Tice is a guy potentially would fill that. Jeremy Grant, some strong ball. Last minute game out. He didn't really play that many minutes before that. He killed it. Cost me a shit ton of money in a single game tournament because of him blowing up. 4,800 on FanDuel, 4,600 on DraftKings. Royce O'Neal, who I used to always talk shit about as far as ineptitude, as far as fantasy. You could see for the year 29 minutes and only 19 points, but in a second we'll see. He's actually become fantasy relevant now. Only 4,500 on FanDuel. Jesus, 3,500? It's only 3,500 on DraftKings? So shit, dude, I don't know. Maybe you get a guy that's under $4,000 is going to play like 32, 35 minutes or something. Fuck it, man. I would give him. I'm just gonna have him some lineups at 4,500, 3,500. Yeah, hell yeah. Marcus Morris, 4,300 FanDuel, 4,200. There's not a whole lot of meat on the bone from a DFS standpoint after Paul George and Kawhi. So who knows with him? Not super excited, but he's cheap. Millsap, he's only gonna play like 24 minutes maybe at the most. Maybe a little bit more because he's a veteran. Now we're in the playoffs. Kleber, so these guys that are at that price tag, that 4,300 between Kleber, Millsap, Morris, I'm not really excited about them. If you want to dive down, like really cheap, Hollis Jefferson, Kurocs possibly, maybe J. Michael Green. But again, I don't think that they're going to see the minutes that they'd had now that we're in the playoffs. So I wouldn't. So, again, I don't think I'll probably personally do that. But let's go here and take a peek at their performance. So Porzingis, 50 points in the restart, 1.42 points per minute. Porter Jr., he's really kind of blossomed. 38 points that he averaged, 1.15 points per minute. He started off kind of slow there, 25 minutes, 16, 17 points. But then from here, 55.9, 49 points, 53, 47. His minutes back down. He went down to 20, and then 25 again when his minutes back down. So who knows what's going to happen in the playoffs with his minutes. I'd still imagine he's probably going to play pretty heavy minutes. So pretty decent price tag to be able to get him at that 6,800. Jason Tatum coming in. He averaged about 38 points, 1.22 points. I don't know. He was, before they stopped, he was playing phenomenal ball. And then from here, 24 points, 57, 34, 24, 35, 50, 37. I mean, shit, he's all over the board. Again, the minutes are a little bit over the board as well. So part of it's understandable. Grant, points per minute wise, not all that great, 0.81, but he had some monster games. He had that 35-point game a couple games back. And then before that, 35 points. So that's a guy, Royce O'Neal. Now, he did do crappy those last two games, but his minutes only 14-11. But if you go back when he plays heavy minutes, 34 minutes, 29 points, 19 minutes, 25, 33 minutes, 38, 34 minutes, 30, 39 minutes, 30. So point per wise, he's not, for the season, point per 9, that's, actually for a big man, that's not all that good. You'd want to be over 1. But at the end of the day, if he's cheap and he's out there playing 30-plus minutes and he throws you like 30 points at 3,500, I mean, that's 10 times fucking value right there, so that's really good. Horford, 24 points there. We can kind of see, again, with the minutes are a little bit lumpy with him, trying to rest guys, but I think now that we are in the playoffs again, he'll probably be playing some more consistent minutes. Like I mentioned, Tice, 24 points. Ibaka, only 22. Only played 21 minutes, though. So that's what I'd like to do, the points per minute there, too, especially because it's kind of hard to gauge what's going on now. I'm going to continue to do this throughout the playoffs, so that's what I'm most excited about. Playing DFS basketball in the playoffs is the best thing in the world, just because the lineups are as sharp as they're ever going to be throughout a year, and it just makes it more enjoyable. That's one less variable I have to fucking worry about. So, okay, from there, and then, there's these other guys, or some of like the lower type guys I mentioned, like, Crocs gets out there, plays 20-some minutes. He might get you 19 points, and he's actually, I think, even been starting, even when I think he's considered basically their starting power forward now, and right next to Allen. So that's a guy potentially, if you wanted to, that I think is probably out of this group of cheap guys that has probably got a higher probability for success. I think Patterson, because Harrell's back now, I think you're going to see Patterson's minutes take a hit, and J. Michael Green's minutes those guys are both probably going to take a hit. Zubac, we'll get to in a second. I think that he basically just plays 24 minutes, and we'll see that here in a second. So I think he'll still probably play his 24 minutes. So, and I think it'll be those other two guys that get squeezed a little bit. So, all right, coming in here at centers, we've got the Joker, 8,600. Abib's coming in right behind him, 8,500. And let me back up with the DraftKings. Joker's only 8,500 on DraftKings. Now, Embiid, he's getting pretty expensive on DraftKings. He is coming in at 10,200, so a lot more expensive there. Gobert, 7,600 on FanDuel, 7,500 on DraftKings. He kind of seems like up and down performer. Who I really, really like is Jared Allen, 7,200 on FanDuel, $7,000 on DraftKings. It seems like that he's just come out and played some really, really strong ball. Harrell appears to be back. I think I just saw correctly, won 6th Man of the Year. So we've got Zubac. Let me back up. Harrell is only 5,800 on FanDuel, 5,900 on DraftKings. Kind of hard to see, what they're going to do with him, having not played yet, how they're going to work him back into that lineup. And then, like I mentioned, Zubac, 5,100 on FanDuel. That's 1,000. Yeah, wow, only 1,000 less on DraftKings. So that's a pretty attractive DraftKings price, even for a guy that goes 24 minutes. He's a 1.2 points per minute for the year, and he had done really well in the startup. So he's a guy, if he plays 24 minutes, he could get you in the low 30 points very easily. Boucher, probably not playing anymore. $5,000 or maybe just spot minutes, like if there's foul trouble. But for $5,000 on FanDuel, he's not going to be in my player pool. 3,700 on DraftKings. Yeah, if there's a blowout or some foul problems, because he's. I mean, there's not a lot of big guys around there anymore. And Gasol, I don't really see him all of a sudden playing 35 minutes or anything like that. Boban, who knows what's happening with him? 4,100 on FanDuel. He's probably not going to play. Only 3,400 on DraftKings. If he were to play, obviously he's a monster from a points per minute standpoint. Same thing, Tony Bradley's going to be coming off the bench. Kyle Quinn, Robert Williams, Cantor. I do like Plumlee because he's at least going to come in and play solid minutes. He's a 1.14 points per minute guy. So out of these cheaper guys, I actually am going to throw Plumlee in some lineups, I think. Because I think it might just allow me to buy up. Because, again, with Plumlee, you might think that's crazy to do it, but 3,600 on FanDuel, 3,300 on DraftKings. I mentioned this before because I'm a GPP player. If I've got the Joker involved, I like to say I've got 5 lineups with the Joker. I kind of like to play 5 lineups with Plumlee because the Joker, it's you don't know what you're going to get out of him, and it usually just kind of comes down to how many minutes he's playing. And Plumlee, when Plumlee plays minutes, he produces. So that being said, let's go in there and look at the production. So we've got Embiid, almost 45 points in the startup, 1.55 points per minute. So, of course, he's just a beast from that standpoint. Now, like I mentioned with Allen, I think like he's my guy, and I could see him being heavily owned, but I just like his potential just because he's so much cheaper. I think he basically has the same amount of potential as a Joker and Embiid. Definitely doesn't have as well-rounded game. He's not the passer like that those guys are, but just for that price tag, I mean, as far as hitting value, he's got, I think, more upside. Joker coming in there, 38 points, 1.31 points per minute. Gobert, 36 points, 1.17 points per minute. You know, his history, or he seems to be kind of an up and down type player. Zubac, like I mentioned with him, first game he only played 15 minutes, but then he had 24 minutes, 29 points, 24 minutes, 31 points, 24 minutes, 43 points, 24 minutes, 29 points, 24 minutes, 32 points, 21 minutes. Like, what? You didn't keep the 24-minute streak alive, but on the 21 minutes, he had 32 points. And the last game, 10 minutes and 12 points. So like I say, if he comes out there and plays that 24 minutes, he's probably going to do well. Harrell, you know, who knows? Let's just jump back here real quick. What was he doing before the year, points per minute wise? 32 points, 28, 1.23 points per minute. So, yeah, I mean, if he's playing, but again, I just don't know if he's going to go out there and get that big of a run. Gasol is under that 1 point per minute. That's shitty for a big man. Now, Plumlee, not producing at that rate that he had, but he had to play 19 minutes. And I say rate, not that he was producing earlier in the regular season, but 19 minutes, 19 points. Boucher was killing it, but again, I see his minutes dropping, but this kind of goes back to the potential of him is if there is a blowout or some foul trouble and he does get 20 minutes, he can do some damage. You know, see this one game, like 4 or 5 games back, 14 minutes, 17 points, 29 minutes, 53 points, 21 minutes, 40 points, and then 21 and 21. Marjanovic, Boban, same thing, 1.56 points. But again, all those guys, it's just like I know Plumlee is part of the rotation, whereas these other guys maybe or maybe aren't. And, you know, Bradley is too, I suppose, but it just feels like, because here's the thing, I guess I'll, just to give it a little bit better context, is, you know, these guys are basically going to probably come in, other than maybe Boucher might like rotate in with like Ibaka and Gasol, but it's most of the time like these guys are just coming in and it's like the other center is just like sitting. The Denver Nuggets will play Plumlee and the Joker together on a pretty regular basis for, you know, maybe 4 or 5 minutes a game. So that's the other part of it with Plumlee is that it's not like we're strictly solely relying on the Joker maybe getting foul trouble or getting hurt or playing less minutes for whatever reason for him to still have a potential good game. So cool. Well, that's it. You know, we covered a lot here, so if maybe it's a little bit long-winded, I apologize for that, and then I fucked up some of that stuff too, but as you can see, it was pretty tedious. I was doing it real early this morning, so hopefully you'll find this stuff helpful. I like it just because it's so unique, because it's almost like we're starting a new season, and again, I'm going to continue to do this once we get into the playoffs, and I've got it kind of broken down. You'll be able to see it out as I expand my list here, but I'm going to be able to, with this spreadsheet, just keep on breaking it down by round. Eventually, I'm going to probably take this out once we get into the playoffs, because then we're going to really know what the rotations are, and then some of this older data is not going to be as useful data anymore. So, again, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you subscribe and join me on this journey to the finals. So, all right, guys, go out and kick some ass tomorrow, and I will see you on Tuesday with another video. Peace out.